Yeah, and I think in life, the sooner you realize that no one actually is staying awake at night for you, but yourself, the sooner you can then work even harder to make sure that your future's in your hands, no one else. And I think a lot of people think, no, they blame someone or circumstances. I've never heard of a situation where someone was able to solve their problems by beating themselves up or thinking that, okay, well, it is what it is. My life is this way because of the past or whatever, and it's just it doesn't bring about solutions.
Hey guys, welcome to The Hidden Heroes. This show is all about bringing to you people who have just discovered the hero within and have unleashed it out to the world. It is our absolute goal to inspire each and every one of you to take massive action, to live a life worthy of a hero. Boy, do we have a guest for you. At a very young age, he needed to fend for himself as his mom got into a terrible accident, leaving them with very little money. At the age of 9, he took it upon himself to start his own business. He understood the importance of education, and that's where he actually sold his business at the age of 9 to pay his tuition fees all the way up to university. Directly after university, he started working and studying through Investec. It is there where he built himself up and eventually became a manager overseeing plus minus 60 people. He absolutely loved it there, but he felt there was a deeper calling, and that's when he found himself into the app development world. He is today the co-founder of the BlumeApp, which essentially connects the unconnected. It is quite amazing what they're doing, really having waves in the tech and business industry. With that being said, come with me as I introduce to you Rumwell Mabundza. Great, Rumwell, thank you so much for having us. I really do appreciate it. So let's get right into it. Talk to us about your upbringing. Was it quite tough growing up?
Yeah, well, I mean, tough is one of those words that I guess everyone kind of uses or can relate to. But
Yeah.
I've had a very just interesting upbringing, I'd call it, and
Yeah.
came from a more of a colorful background, multicultural type of family. Learned quite a lot. Growing up in Joburg was very important to kind of who I am today.
Yeah.
I grew up in an environment where I was surrounded by people from all walks of life, which was very important in giving me as a character depth as a person. So yeah, I think it wasn't tough. It was interesting. It was colorful. It was always robust. Yes, everyone has challenges whilst growing up, which I had myself, but I also had highlights.
Yeah. And could you speak to us about a few of those highlights that really gave you lessons that you think someone else who hadn't had such an upbringing would have?
Yeah, I think the most pivotal part in my life was my education, where I grew up initially at a school that wasn't as sophisticated as the schools in the suburban type of areas. For the first up till grade 3, I was in a school that only taught Tswana, and I didn't know a word of English.
Okay.
And then had the opportunity. Well, the school was a school where it was from grade 1 to matric, where there was quite a lot of bullying in the school, quite a lot of gangsterism in the school, and got to a point where I got bullied and beaten up quite badly, and then at that point, my other side of the family decided it's time to go to a different school.
Yeah.
They then thought, okay, well, there's an opportunity at Rivonia Primary. They went there. It's a good school. They'll teach you everything that you need to know about life. It was kind of a very, very good school.
Yeah.
I was lucky to get in, but initially there was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Got to the school and they asked, could you take Rumwell? And it was last minute in January, and they said he doesn't know a word of English, would kind of have to fail him 3 grades
Jeez.
in order to catch him up.
Yeah.
And the principal rejected me and said, no, we can't take him to our school. And a teacher in the background overheard. Her name was Mrs. Bainon, and she then decided to intervene, and she said, well, I can teach you on weekends and evenings without really having a school. So I was in between schoolless, but yet had a teacher.
Okay.
So she then said, okay, well, I'll teach you. And basically what I had to do is after school go to her house. She taught me evenings, she taught me weekends, she taught me, and then to the point where basically they had to hold me back in grade 3, and then got to a point at the end of October where she decided to enter me into the English Olympiad for Gauteng, and I won that competition. And so it was quite cool, and it was something that kind of gave me the confidence to go even further and work even harder, because I just realized, well, if you just dedicate your mind and put in the effort, anything is possible, you know.
Jeez, yeah.
And then the following year, January, they accepted me into Rivonia Primary, and then the rest was history. So
fantastic. That's quite incredible. But would you say the teacher, firstly, did you have to pay the teacher to?
She
so
did
she
it
did
in
it
her
out of
own
the
time.
goodness of her heart,
Yeah.
essentially. And would you say, taking that experience, what's the narrative that plays in your mind from that experience? Because I mean, it's not anyone that just randomly decides, I'm going to teach you. What story do you tell yourself from that?
I think in South Africa we're surrounded by a lot of people that are willing to give their time and willing to give to society, but there's very few people that are willing to take the opportunity. So for me, it was always that thing that I had in the back of my mind, that there's a lot of people in your life that will give you opportunities, don't waste it. And so, I think that's what stuck with me ever since that year, all the way through. Before I left my previous school, before Rivonia Primary, the words that always lingered from one of the teachers was that you'll never become a success ever in your life. And for a kid to hear that, it's scary. It shook me a bit, but it fucking made me work.
100%. So they actually said to you, you're not going to become successful.
So when she said that straight to my face, it was something that as a child, it's very hard to kind of digest and understand what the teacher means. You always think your teachers know more, so you kind of take it without a pinch of salt, you know. It was one of those things that I actually thank her for doing that. It made me work harder, focus, push myself, so it was good.
That's amazing. So while she said this, what did you tell yourself? Like, I'm going to prove you wrong, or maybe I'm not going to become successful?
It just instilled fear in me, and then that fear becomes a driving force. And so I think it was due to that fear that kind of said, well, you can't fail. You have to be the first one in your family that sees success, and you have to take the bull by the horns, really. So it was,
Fantastic. I think a lot of people either go toward fear or, try to avoid fear. And it seems like once you see fear, you almost go straight for it. And I think that's been one of your successes, is going towards fear, not avoiding it. Would you say, what advice would you give to people that are very fearful? Because I mean, we're all fearful of things. And how do you have to change your mindset of, hey, yes, I am fearful, but hey, I got to do it?
I just think life deals you with cards, positive ones, negative ones. We all have our challenges. You just have to take it aboard. I think people think life means happiness, joy. It's a joyful ride. It's not that. You need to be able to realize that it's got all the ups and downs, and the sooner you own them, the sooner you'll become at peace with yourself and realize your own potential. But if I think a lot of us think negative fears should be placed on one side and the positive fears should be embraced, and you kind of have to embrace both to realize your own potential. Because if you don't, you start to get into this headspace of questioning yourself, And then when you question yourself, then you become your own enemy, and there's plenty of enemies in life to worry about, you know.
Yeah. And during primary school days, were you an avid reader? Did you enjoy reading? Because it seems like, you know, you were quite mature in your thinking even back then.
No, not really. I didn't read too much. I took lessons from people around me. I have a keen interest from learning from people who have been there, done that.
So you're a good observer.
So it was all about just respect of your elders, listen to them keenly, and take on board their lessons. So for me, I was that child that always asked questions and was really, really interested around what people have done in their lives, what people regretted, and people found it a bit odd that a child would be asking detailed questions like that.
Yeah.
I remember my gran just used to tease me as the most talkative child ever because I used to ask quite a lot of questions, and I think questions is one thing that I'd encourage everyone to keep asking. Ask questions. You learn through questions, and people think when you ask a question, it means you're opening up yourself to saying that you are not intelligent, but yet intelligence comes from questions.
Oh, that's so true. You know, I think Tony Robbins says it quite nicely. He says, a good solution always stems from a good question. You need to have a good question, and that's something we'll definitely get into. Let's speak about your first business venture. I know at age of 9, you had your first business. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think that it wasn't a burst of genius. It was just one of those life challenges that came about. My mom got into a serious accident. She was the sole provider for the family, and her being paralyzed meant no income for the entire family. So at that point in time, I had to do something. And then I thought, okay, well, start a business, you know. And started my first business. It was a childcare business at the Bryanston Organic Market. That's where my mom used to work. And then, I was able to bring in some money on Thursdays and Saturdays when they open. And that was enough money to kind of sustain me while my mom was in hospital for 6 months. Kind of had to grow up very quickly at that point where I had to bring myself up. It was that reality of, okay, now you have to do your own clothes, cook for yourself, take yourself to school, do your own homework. Although like homework was one of those things that I never actually really ever relied on anyone. Because my family was of such where the education level wasn't at that level, you know, to assist me with homework and stuff. But it was as soon as she got into that accident, I just realized that, okay, well, it's time to be a man now, and it's time to grow up very, very quickly. And so, when I started my business, there was some cash to send home to my gran to look after my brothers and to look after myself. So that was the calling of why I started that business, was out of need, not any genius intent.
I think that's also so key. Are you the oldest in terms of the siblings?
No, second born.
That's very interesting because, you know, you obviously, again, you told yourself, I need to do, it's not I want to, I need to do something. It's almost my back's against the wall. There's only one way and one way forward. And you took it upon yourself. A lot of people could be saying, look at my circumstances, I give up. Why is God doing this to me? But you saw it a different way.
Yeah, and I think in life, it's the sooner you realize that no one actually is staying awake at night for you, but yourself, the sooner you can then work even harder to make sure that your future's in your hands, no one else. And I think a lot of people think, they blame someone or circumstances. I've never heard of a situation where someone was able to solve their problems by beating themselves up or thinking that, okay, well, it is what it is. My life is this way because of the past or whatever, and it's just it doesn't bring about solutions. It doesn't bring about success at all.
So what did you say, telling our viewers, so they go through something it's quite hectic, do you have a process that you would go through in order to get out of that? So I would imagine, again, you're feeling down and out, you're asking these questions. Do you feel anger, or how do you approach that?
For me, the first thing that I do is suppress my emotions, and I think there's clarity once you start to suppress emotions and think about things rationally. And so I think when you want to get into a space of problem solving, you need to be able to confront your emotions, deal with them as quick as possible, and then move on to the problem solving ability where now you actually rationalize the whole situation and try to find a way out of it and a way forward.
Yeah, perfect. So from Rivonia Primary School, you then obviously went to high school. And did you pay your way through high school as well?
So when I was 13, about to turn 13, a lady at the Brownston Organic Market came and offered me cash buyout for the business. Not because it was a profitable business or a good business. She was just concerned that I wasn't going to finish school. Okay. So she said, well, if I give you money for your business, will you then use that money for your education? So that was the deal, and that got me through primary school and grade 8, and then from grade 9 I needed to find an additional source of income, and then I started a vegetable business in Melville, which I'd run every Saturday, and then that was able to get me through high school.
Sure, that's amazing. And so again, you have a problem and you don't ask yourself, why me? You say, what's the solution? What can I do to help with that? And I think, again, that just hits home for me, just hearing the story every time. And speak about what happened after that. So I know you needed to go and study in university, and how exactly did you do that?
Yeah, also same situation, financial constraints, got into varsity, had to pay my way through varsity, and then realized that I needed a job. Investec, luckily enough, had a night call center where one could work and earn an income. Start work at like 7 in the evening, finish at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, or work the graveyard from midnight until 8 in the morning, whilst being a full-time student. So it just meant like, straight off the graveyard, straight to work, or straight off the graveyard, straight to varsity, and make sure that you're attentive because you need to pass it one shot, because you're paying for it. So it was, I think, the cool thing about that experience is that I learned how to stretch myself to the limit in terms of having a 24-hour day and using it effectively and fully. And so to this day, I feel like there's no challenge too big because I can handle a full day of lectures, study for exams while working and all of that, and making sure that I still pass. So it was just one of those things that also find a solution, figure it out, and your life's in your hands, no one else's.
Excellent. So obviously varsity and school and education in general is quite important to you. There's been this uptrend now of people saying, is varsity necessary? Can't we just become entrepreneurs off the bat and just work our way up? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think people get it wrong in respect to saying, like, for example, you went to school, you learned geography, and then you don't use it today, and then you go, well, what was the point, For me, education, the point is, it's like a full construct, and being able to teach you life lessons and not really too much about the subject itself. So something like varsity, where I might have learned things that I'm not using today, but you get to a point in life where you look back to say, actually, it feels like intellectually I've taken a step up. And that didn't happen by chance. It happened through education. And you aren't able to make the decisions you make today without that education base that you've had. Because it's very hard to put a nail on it and say exactly what you took out of your education or what you took out of school and all of that. But it's very easy to realize when you start to talk to people in society that haven't had your education to see the difference. And that's where I think if you're able to say, well, here's an individual that hasn't had an education, here I am, you can now sense the difference, therefore it was valuable.
Totally. I think, again, that's so true. And with my life personally as well, I didn't really understand the necessary act in going to varsity, but I went anyway. And you know, it's only when you start to socialize and get out there do you realize, oh my word. So it's very subtle, very, very subtle. So I would imagine then you went into Investec and you started working there after you've passed. Were you pretty smart in varsity?
No, not a smart guy. Yeah, no, I think when people talk about intellect and smart and all of that, it all depends. You'll gauge it in your own sphere. I am smart for me, you know. I'm not compared to anyone else.
Okay.
I was never the smartest in the class. I never got the highest grades.
Yeah.
But I feel that I've been smart at life and decisions that I've made, you know. So it's a different type of intellect.
Yeah, yeah. So you started working for Investec, and I know you took on this managerial position, overseeing about plus minus 60 staff members, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was interesting. So first year, so this is what happened. So first year at Investec, I went for the interview.
Yeah.
It was for the SA business, and got there and had the interview where I had forgotten about the interview. That was the important part. I was at varsity. I had a bit of sport, and after half time through the game, I got an SMS checked on my phone from a lady at Investec HR to just say, here's a reminder of your interview at 12 o'clock today. I didn't have a car, so I took a taxi from UJ to middle of town, take a taxi from there to Rock and Roll McDonald's, called a friend of mine who I went to primary school with, who's like really like half my size. So got there, said, can you please hook me up with a formal shirt and some pants quickly so I can just jump into my interview.
Yeah.
And the guy arrived with a shirt, no pants wouldn't fit, and put on the pants, rugby shorts, some boots and stuff.
Yeah.
And the shirt didn't fit properly, but buttoned it up enough at the top. So I got to reception at Investec. The lady said, okay, what are you here for? I said, I'm here for an interview. She thought I was kidding. So she said, okay, are you sure? So I said, with who? So I said the lady's name that was interviewing me. Then as the lady confirmed that, okay, cool, it's fine, heard the lady at reception just say, call the lady at reception at the next floor to just say, as soon as this guy comes through, can you just take him into a room? I thought that was a normal process, but in hindsight, it was just so that clients don't see me, you know. I had like grass in my hair and shit. It was really the worst way to present yourself, you know. So yeah, I got there, and this was my second interview. So the first interview, I won't explain what went wrong because it was more on the side of the organization around interview skills and so on. It was a telephone interview initially, so I didn't meet my interviewers, so it was like just talk, dead, gone, and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So they called me the next year to say, like, would you be interested to join our UK team? So I said, not really. That was my response, because I had such a bad interview initially, and I was like put off by the whole experience. So the second, it wasn't even a second year, it was probably about like 6 months later.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the UK interview, that's where I arrived in this fashion, and one of my business partners now actually interviewed me, and I was sitting down, so the first question I thought they're going to ask me is, why are you dressed like this?
Yeah.
And they didn't ask because I was sitting down already, and most of the mayhem was under the table, the shirt was fine, was decent, you know. And then they interviewed me, had the whole thing, and then they started to ask questions like, when's the earliest you can start and stuff like that, and I thought, okay, well, this is going well.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the interview, then it was like, okay, cool, handshake time, and then I got up, and then they saw my shorts and stuff, and then they were like, okay, so sit down and explain what happened.
Yeah,
so explain the whole thing from start to end, the whole story that I just gave you guys, and the guys were like, okay, well, that story's gonna stick with you for life, but you can start at Investec, and then that's the rest was kind of quick progress on the phones for 12 months, 6 months, and then got my first increase. It was kind of a shock. The guys were like, no, we feel like we're underpaying you. So they gave me an increase of 6 months. And then at 12 months, they said, would you be interested to look after or build up our after hours team, because the UK team has to grow into a 24/7 business.
Yeah.
And then I said to them, shit guys, I'm like 21 and you're like at varsity, you know, I don't feel like I have the capability of
Yeah.
looking after a business in corporate, you know. So the guys said, okay, well, think about it. I thought about it. My answer was no. And then a guy by the name of Wayne Preston from the UK flew out, and he then came to say, dude, I flew all the way here to meet you, and then secondly, to convince you to take the job. So I said to him, well, if you're going to fly this all the way here, sure, then I'll take the job, but then I need some strong mentorship. So he said, okay, cool, fine, we can organize that. Took the job, and yeah, the rest, it just grew. So I started with a team of 15, which was the UK team, and then they gave me the SA team, and then they gave me the UK team, and then the Australian team, and then they gave me the Mauritius team. So then that grew to 60 people, and it was interesting because then I got to a point where I was leading leaders. So there was different sub-managers within the area, and it was a big challenge to be this 22-year-old having a 40-year-old reporting into you, guy that's been there for 15, 20 years, and people that are saying, okay, now we're looking to you for guidance, career growth, and all of those type of things. That's when I haven't even grown in my own career. So that's the point that one had to learn quickly by reading, by researching, and by talking and asking questions to those that have been there and done that. And luckily through Investec, I was offered an opportunity to go on a course called One Young World, where one was able to experience leaderships at different type of levels, both operational, corporate, all the way to inspirational type of leadership. So
That's
I was blown away by like the words and mentorship from guys like Richard Branson, Kofi Annan, and Bob Geldof. So those guys are like, I think for me, elevated what is possible, and then you come back home and then you have to apply that to what 100%. Is practical.
Before we get into that, because again, that's a beautiful story in and of itself. Why do you think at the age of 21 and 22 years old, they asked you specifically, what about you portrayed that leadership quality? Why you?
I just think it's like, I can't answer for them, but what I can say is that probably just the aspect of not fearing to fail. And so guys then kind of will go, okay, well, even if we give him the opportunity, we know that he'll work his way out of it and make it a success. And so I think that possibly may have been it, but just based on my past experiences, I just go for it, and you'll figure it out as you go along.
And I would imagine there has to be a degree of confidence that you would ooze, because I mean you can't have lack of confidence in lead. Were you always this confident? How did you become this confident?
I think from the outside maybe look confident, but it's that whole duck analogy, you know. Above water you have to have the composure to deal with the elements, and then below the water you're working extremely hard, you know. Confidence only comes through with hard work. You only feel confidence and you build your confidence and you feel that you've put in the hard yards. People that feel very insecure and not confident is because you actually haven't done that work, you know. You can't talk from an experience, you're talking from a hope or a perception, you know?
And so you know that saying, fake it until you make it. Would you agree with that?
I think make smart decisions. It's not fake it till you make it can really lead to burning your fingers really quickly, you know. The thing is that you could fake it for a very long time and then people see through it. What is super important is that always be yourself and just be true to yourself and be genuine with people, and then people will resonate to you, people will gravitate towards you, and people will join you on the ride, you know?
Perfect. So there's quite a few things, and that's exactly what I wanted to speak to you about, is leadership itself. You know, how do you define a leader? What is a leader? And I think one of the aspects that you mentioned now is you need to know who you are. You have to authentically know who you are. Could you speak a bit about what is a leader itself?
Yeah, I think there's many different types of leadership. Some people lead by managing. Some people lead by what I think is the right way is, your job as a leader is not about you. It's about those that you're leading and figuring out how to get the best out of them. And the sooner you do that, then you're leading, because then you start to actually be able to say, okay, well, let me now deal with individuals, because that's what you're dealing with, not machines. And then you're able to say, okay, well, this is how I can get the best out of this person. And then by doing that, they get the best out of you.
Oh, well said. I think that's so true. So let's speak a bit about Bloom. How exactly did you get to Bloom? I know you had to go through a few seminars and workshops. What is the tipping point for you that allowed you to create such an app called Bloom?
Yeah, so Bloom less about the tech and around the vision. It was really an idea born through myself and my partners, where we wanted to solve a problem that persists in society. We realized that in our country we've got an issue where the formal sector is disconnected from the informal sector, and that is a reality that needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later. So when we are looking for skills and services and all of those type of things in our homes or businesses, there's a trust element that is a big barrier to entry when it comes to the informal sector in South Africa. So we then saw this problem where we thought, actually, how do we bridge that gap where you see a plumber or an electrician or some guy on the side of the road that's selling you a service, but you feel that, okay, I would love to use him, but I'm not sure if he's going to do what he's saying he'll do on that placard, you know?
Yeah.
So then we thought, okay, well, if we are all about job creation, figuring out how to bridge these divisions, how can we do it? And then the idea and the solution was that we can leverage technology. So it wasn't really too much about technology. Technology became a solution that binds our idea.
Yeah.
But the idea around Bloom is, how do we then create a society and neighborhoods in South Africa that feel connected?
Yeah.
And that trust element starts to become a little bit less of a barrier. And we feel that it's going to be a long haul to solve that, because obviously what we have done economically as a country has gone backwards and not forwards, and then you kind of now are stuck in between that. And as we recover, you'll find that people start to use services again, to have that disposable income to do household chores and all of those things again. And hopefully then we are in the middle of that and ready to take on that market as people adapt technology and so on. So at the moment, Bloom is an app, a web-based platform that allows you to book services for your home at a click of a button, really, where we take on all the vetting of the guys that you're booking, and then we just put it at the fingertips of the consumer.
Excellent. I know you attended, I think it's called Young One World.
One Young World.
One Young World.
Yeah.
What influence did that have in your endeavor with Bloom?
So my decision to resign was actually triggered at the conference, where Richard Branson, through his workshops and side discussions, said, what is next for Rumwell? You know, he says, okay, well, you've done all of these things at Investec, which is good, but I don't see you as a corporate person. I see you as a business person, and you've demonstrated how when there's a need for you personally, you're able to build something that at least someone's willing to pay for.
Yeah. So he's actually speaking to you like this?
It was, it was
face-to-face,
one of the workshops where it was a networking event, break off, had a side chat, and that was the question he asked, and I thought, I don't have an answer, but I'll find that answer and see what's next. And on the way back from Bangkok, had one too many gins, and then the thinking began, around, okay, well, there's this problem, maybe this problem can be solved, And this was a problem that I could relate to just because I have family members that are in that dilemma. So I then thought, how do I create opportunities for my family? But yet I thought, actually, it can't be a selfish decision. How do you create opportunities for even more people and make it even a bigger case to solve? So yeah, that was what kind of triggered it. And then came back to Investec, spoke to two of my colleagues, Austin and Tim, and I said to them, guys, this is what I'm thinking. And they then added a lot more flavor to it. And then we decided, okay, well, let's go try find our first round of funding. And then in 2 weeks, we had our first round of funding that enabled us to resign and have a 12-month runway. So yeah, that was the thinking.
There's so many things again. So firstly, the fact that you spoke to Richard Branson is quite amazing in and of itself. How did you feel speaking to him? Was it like a surreal moment, or like just one of the guys?
No, I think there's a humility about those type of inspirational type of leaders, so they make you feel comfortable in the discussion. So yeah, I think there's the overwhelming aspect of, wow, you know, he's been so successful, he's got such great businesses, but yet you're able to settle very quickly to think, actually, I have this short opportunity to extract an experience out of this, and you pull yourself together very quickly to extract what you need and your piece of inspiration, and then you can take it from there.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to sort of link it all together. So you've met with Richard Branson, you guys spoke, and the big thing that you took out of it was what's next. So from what you're saying, so was working in Investec not something that was fulfilling, or how would you see that?
It was extremely fulfilling. I think looking back, had it not been for this new adventure and this venture with my business partners, there would have not been anything better for me. This was the best, and that is second best.
Okay.
So it's not like I left a place where I was unhappy or looking for my next step. It was one that I thought I have a bigger calling, and therefore, you know, let me get it done. And you know, the people that I worked with, the people that I feel that I've impacted in a small or big way, are left at Investec and are doing well, and we're in contact and we talk and all of that, and they offer me advice, I offer them advice, and it's all great.
Fantastic. So you eventually leave Investec, but I know you mentioned that you needed to accumulate some funds, 2 years of funding, just so you're able to live. How exactly did you do that?
So we pulled together, we formulated a bit of a business plan from the idea, so that we could get to a point where it was an idea, there was practicality around deliverance, there was some level of a business model and a functional process behind the business. And so that was thought that was put together downstairs in this office block when we started. And then we went to an angel investor and we said, look, would this be something that you're interested in? And I think the one thing that we sold was that's why I keep separating the tech to the vision. Our angel investor bought into the vision and thought, if this works, this is something I want to be a part of. And that's where we were.
Again, I think that's so important, because, you know, and it's like you mentioned, it's not really the tech, it's the purpose, it's the meaning behind the tech, because tech in and of itself doesn't mean much, it's the meaning that it gives. And
that's what wakes you up in the morning. Tech won't wake you up in the morning. If you think I'm going to go work on Excel the whole day, it's fun. But if you think I'm waking up today to go deliver something fantastic through Excel formulas, then you'll wake up.
And let's speak a bit about tech. Where do you see, particularly in South Africa, where do you see tech now and in the future? Do you think there is a market for tech in South Africa?
Well, I mean, there already is tech, and there is already a market for tech in South Africa. The interesting part about this society in South Africa is that you've got a small segment in the country that is educated, well positioned enough to adopt whatever new technology the developed markets are throwing at us. And then you've got the majority segment that isn't ready for that yet, but it's a market. So what you need to do is be prepared for that, because 10 years ago there was thinking that the informal sector would never be on social media platforms, understand how to use things like Facebook and post and all of that. But you can see that I have young cousins and uncles and so on that are on Facebook, but aren't educated, but yet are using it. And it's interesting when I go onto their timelines where I see what they posted in their first post, where it was broken English, couldn't understand what they were saying, to a point now where you can understand what they're saying and they're communicating through Facebook and it's clear what they're saying. And I thought, okay, well, this platform was built for a social reason, but in undeveloped markets, it's becoming an education tool, and people are learning from it and are learning from people in different walks of life. And so there's a lot more that can be learned from that, where you're starting to see that people are adopting it even in the informal sector. So it's a matter of time that as a country, we will embrace technology. We have our challenges in saying that we can't now, but you just have to say, well, 10, 15, 20-year plans. That's how great businesses are built, not for short-term gains, it's more for long-term gains.
Totally. Let's speak a bit about the app Bloom. So what sort of challenges did you come up with and go through, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, there's plenty of challenges. I think just like building any business, you have different ideas, challenges economically, challenges in ensuring that your idea is practical enough for the end user, and you just have to make sure that the end user has the exact problem that you think exists. And so the important part in building the technology and building the business was for us to find out from the end user, is this something you would use? Which was, with us, obviously it's a B2B model where it's like, okay, well, there's a consumer and there's also a service provider providing that service. So both of them have to feel they can benefit from the platform enough so that they can then use it continuously. And obviously also making sure that from a competitor perspective, we're delivering something that's different, because there's a whole lot of competitors that are there to solve various problems, but we felt that our problem was sophisticated enough to give us quite a good step into the market. So yeah, it's there was a whole lot of challenges. There was challenges around making sure that our funding delivered something, our funding lasted. We needed to ensure that we get the next stage of funding when we are ready and when we know what we're going to use it for specifically. There's a lot of people that will raise money for the sake of raising money, and the thing is that when you raise money, it's just like debt, you're just making your pockets even deeper, and you need to make sure that your business is sophisticated enough to pay all of that back. What we learned through our experiences as a business is that money doesn't actually solve it. It's actually the hard work that actually solves it, Don't buy yourself out of problems when you're trying to build a business.
Just let's go slightly further back. So I'm just thinking, like, if I were to decide I want to develop an app, where do I even start? Do I Google how to develop an app? Like, what exactly did you do? Did you just contact the people that knew exactly how? What process did you use?
So we went through quite a thorough vetting process of understanding who develops, because when we started about 4 years ago, the word app was the buzzword. Everyone was now, Uber was planting its seed really into Africa, and guys were starting to understand the power of apps, and and everyone was shifting in that direction. So there's a lot of players that were starting to come into South Africa saying that we develop apps, we can help you develop an app and this and that. But we needed to ensure that it wasn't about developing the app, it was more about the user experience that we were trying to deliver. So we firstly had to go through a very, very long, intimate process with a couple of techies to understand what is the user experience that we're trying to deliver. And we finally then, through that process, found a tech developer that we were satisfied with down in Stellenbosch. And they were, as a team, able to help us draw out the user process and the user experience on paper so that we can then go, well, we're very, very happy with that. Now, how do we then take that and build it into a real type of technology?
Yeah.
So the next thing after that was obviously building the technology, which we looked around South Africa, and because South Africa was like new into the market, you pay a lot to develop something like, or to get developers to do the work.
And what's a lot? What's a lot?
We're starting to get quotes of 2.5 million, 3 million, 4 million rand to build an app, you know, and to build the experience that we wanted on our application. So then we then said, okay, guys, we've got this user experience, we've got this concept now nailed down. We need to kind of take 2 steps back and unpack this a bit and go, okay, well, are we now trying to deliver a Rolls Royce in the market when our initial question was, we need to find out from the end user if this will work for them. So are we going to find out in a very, very costly way, or are we going to find out in a cost-effective way? Because it's very, very risky. It's obvious there, you know?
Yeah.
So we then said, okay, well, let's try go to that philosophy of building a minimal viable product and then going out there and saying, okay, let's now test our assumptions after building that. So we found some guys that were actually able to assist us build an MVP overseas at a lot more cost-effective way, just because they've been there, done that already. It's not new to them, you know? So yeah, we built our MVP, got into the market, and our MVP is our product at the moment, just because we felt that it was delivering exactly what the users were looking for, which is, for us, it was the guys are looking for business. Yes, there's inefficiencies in how they do their business, but we're not there yet, where guys are saying, my business, I'm so busy and I'm so flooded, the market is, the economy is bustling, and everyone's saying, okay, now how do I now optimize my business to become efficient? People are still in business building, just, that's the state of the economy.
What advice would you give to someone that wants to get into app development or develop their own app? What sort of words of wisdom would you give them?
I think it just goes back to just make sure you have a real problem that you're trying to solve. Research that problem, ask a lot of questions around that problem, and eventually go to the end consumer and ask, are they willing to pay for a solution around that problem? And if they are, and if you find enough people that are willing to pay for that solution, then you've got a business. Then go and develop the app. Don't build technology, build solutions.
Perfect. So you eventually got into the app world, and I know, and I love the story about you. So you actually got your, I think it's one of your family members as one of your partners, as well as your ex-boss, boss then, ex-boss today. Why do you think, why do they follow you? Because, you know, it's all about the purpose behind what you're trying to achieve. What would you say is the reason why they followed you today?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can just say that I think if you've got a drive about you, you've got determination that's married to it, and people feel that they are buying in for themselves, not for you, and then you are on this journey together, then it becomes something magical, you know, when it's and I think that's the true element of it. You feel, because when you're starting to build a business, your business partners must be in it for themselves and not for you. And I think that's very, very important. You can trigger their own determination just through your thought process, But when they feel that they're in it for themselves and they're in it with you and you're in it with them, then you can build something significant.
And how do you actually create that environment? Because, there's a lot of personalities, there's a lot of people that have their own view of how they should do things. How do you manage or do you micromanage such things? What approach do you use?
Yeah, well, I think in the world of entrepreneurship, you're trying to build, you're trying to find solutions, you're trying to find a client base and all of that. You can't micromanage that environment because you're all trying to test for different things. And so, yeah, I think the bottom line around it is that you're in an environment where you're saying, actually, let's just test, let's just feel the market, and therefore different types of ideas are very, very important to constructing an ideology, because if you micromanage or try to control your environment, you are now limiting the ideas that flow in that process, and you become very inflexible. And in entrepreneurship, flexibility is very, very important. A lot of people use the word pivot when you're building your business, and you can only pivot when you hear new ideas and you test new ideas, because that's how you build.
Yeah. And let's speak about a bit of entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people, again, wanting to become an entrepreneur. In your opinion, are you born that way, or can you cultivate such a skill? Can anyone become an entrepreneur?
Anyone can become an entrepreneur if their desire and determination and drive is right. I feel that just you going to work and selling your skills is being an entrepreneur. You weren't hired because the company felt that they could brainwash you into a certain solution. They felt that there's a service that you're offering that they can buy.
Yeah.
And that for me is also a form of entrepreneurship, and people don't realize that, is that when you go to your 9 to 5, you are actually an entrepreneur that's saying, from 9 to 5, I'm selling my service to this company and they're willing to pay for it by X amount of salary. And so, and then from there, what you should be doing as an employee is to saying, how do I better my service to this company so I can get an increase or a bonus? How do I better my service to this company so that I can climb the corporate ladder? And so I think it's all about sharpening skills on a daily basis. And I think everyone is an entrepreneur in my eyes. It's just for those people to realize that they are selling something and someone's willing to pay for it. And that's entrepreneurship.
I totally agree. So when it comes to closing now, we usually ask about 2 to 3 questions. But I really want to know from you, you really are quite an inspiration to so many people, just the way you present yourself and just your energy, I can feel it. What's the one thing that really inspires you or keeps you going every day? Is it a story that you tell yourself about in the past, or what keeps you going?
Yeah, I just think for me it's to be successful. And the definition of success to me is different from others.
Yeah.
Success for me is being able to one day be able to change people's lives and make sure that people around me have a better life. And I think if I can achieve that, I would have been successful. And that's my biggest drive. It's how do I leave my family in a better place? How do I leave my friends in a better place? How do I leave society in a better place?
Yeah.
In what I do daily, you know?
Yeah. And that actually leads to the next question, and you might have answered it, is what is your legacy? What legacy would you love to leave behind?
My legacy is, I haven't thought about it that much, but if I can just say, I was there and I gave it my all. And I think that's the legacy I want to have. It's just, I gave it my all and I was there and I was present, and for me, that's enough.
Yeah. And then last question, we have a lot of young viewers, and I would imagine I was there back in the day. You feel very confused. You're not sure what to do. What advice would you give to the younger generation today?
It's it's a difficult one because everyone's in different situations, and only those that there may be some that will relate or not relate. But I think just be true to yourself, and don't be your own enemy. Embrace that life has difficulties. the sooner you embrace that, the sooner you'll enjoy life, and you'll feel more fulfilled, because you'll be giving to life. You won't feel that life is not giving to you, because the sooner you take control of life, I feel, then you start to live and you start to give all that you have. And if it still doesn't work out after you've given your all, then sure, so be it. Embrace it though, but you know that you gave your all.
Yeah.
But the biggest failure is when you're in your own head and you feed yourself negative thoughts, and you start to find reasons as to why it's not working out. Because that, for me, is the most damaging thing anybody can do. When we start to go find excuses as to why life is so difficult and why it's not working out. But just, I think for me, I'll just end off on saying, like, you own it. It's your life. No one else is caring about it. I can guarantee you that the sooner we wake up to say, okay, well, it is my life. I have to own it. It's in my hands. Whatever I do from today to tomorrow to the next year is going to impact my life.
Perfect. On that note, Rumwell, thank you so much
Pleasure.
for
Really
having us
good chat.
today.
Thanks.
And it was incredible. Thanks a lot.
Sure. How's it, guys? Rumwell here. Great interview. Really enjoyed my time with Kaelan today. I would call it an interview, but it was quite nice just to obviously reflect on my own walks of life, and it just what really made it nice is just personal questions, and yeah, it was a really good chat. Really enjoyed it, and I feel re-energized myself, and it's nice to just reflect on your own life sometimes just through dialogue.